Shabbat Shalom. So in this week's Torah portion, Shalach Lecha, God instructs Moses to send scouts or spies ahead to the promised land to survey their potential home and then report back to the people. The spies do as they're told, but rather than bringing back one account of the land, they bring back two. The first account is terrifying. The cities are large and fortified, they tell the people, and though the land flows with milk and honey, its people are powerful, the size of giants, and the land itself devours its settlers. The Israelites hear this, and they freak out. They weep all night, they rail at Moses and Aaron, claiming that they'd rather die in the desert or return to Egypt than take their chances in this horrific land of giants where they claim, "We will fall by the sword." Moses and Aaron, overwhelmed, fall on their faces to show presumably that they have failed by bringing the people this far to this potential place. But then a second group of scouts appears, Joshua and Caleb, and they bring with them a totally different story about what they see in the land. And this is what they say. "The land that we traversed and scouted is an exceedingly good land. If the Eternal is pleased with us, he will bring us into that land, a land that flows with milk and honey, and give it to us. Only you must not rebel against the Eternal. Have no fear then of the people of that country, for they are our prey. Their protection has departed from them, but the Eternal is with us. Have no fear of them." The Peshat, or the surface message here, is clear. Being a leader of Israelites is really hard. They're a difficult people who carry their past and all of its attendant fears with them wherever they go. And when they're pessimistic about the future or ambivalent, they can easily slip into anger. Being their leader can be a thankless task. And yet it is also a sacred one, in part because it has repercussions that go far beyond the leaders themselves. As we saw with today's Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe, which I'll be speaking about later tonight, even the leaders that leaders can appoint can themselves change the course of history, making decisions that will impact generations to come. And so tonight, in addition to celebrating Shabbat, we are celebrating one of these leaders, the kind of leader who selflessly gives of his time and energy, patiently listens to kvetching Israelites, registers their complaints, navigates their fears, and does all of this for much, much longer than he initially expected to. Sometimes it might even feel like 40 years in the desert. And so, Ken, we want to start our service tonight by not just recognizing you and all that you have done for all of us at GRS, but by thanking you. GRS would not be where it is or what it is today without your incredible devotion to all of us, the staff, the members, and the institution itself. You are one of the leaders who led us out of the desert with patience, with wisdom, and with vision. And we are all so grateful to you. And as a small token of this, we want to invite you and Anne and Kara to the bima for the blessing and lighting of our Shabbat candles, which can be found on page 120. Page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, mitzivanu להדליק נר של Shabbat.
So traditionally at this point I would say Shabbat Shalom, but I'm going to say Mazel Tov. Nobody tell Ron that I said Mazel Tov on Ken wrapping up his tenure, but Mazel Tov and Toda Rabbah. We are also thankful for all you've done for us. Thank you, Ken. We continue our service tonight with Shalom Aleichem, the welcoming of the Shabbat angels on page 142. But before we do, we take a moment to turn to the folks next to us who may be Shabbat angels in our midst and wish them a Shabbat Shalom and maybe share something about our week. Shabbat Shalom. We're not sick anymore for the most part. I said we're not sick anymore for the most part. No? We continue with Shalom Aleichem, the welcoming of the Shabbat angels on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To the beginning. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We continue now on page 138 of your Sidurim, your prayer books, with Lecha Dodi, the welcoming of the Sabbath bride. Together we'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And when we arrive at verse 9, we will turn and face the doors to symbolically greet the Sabbath bride, and then turn back to face the bima to sing the refrain. Page 138.
La 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 Lecha Dodi, la 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 Likrat Kala, la 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 Pnei Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat Nekabel, la 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 Lecha Dodi, la 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 Likrat Kala, la 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 Pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat Nekabela Shamo v'zachor B'dibor echad Hishmi'anu El HaMyuchad Adonai echad Ushmo echad L'shem u'tiferet Melit chila Lai 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 La 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 Lecha Dodi La 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 Likrat Kala La 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 Pnei Shabbat Pnei Shabbat Likrat Shabbat Lechu v'nelcha Ki mikol haberacha Merosh mikedem Nesucha Sof ma'aseh B'machshvati la Lai 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 La 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 Lecha Dodi La 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 Likrat Kala La 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 Pnei Shabbat Pnei Shabbat Nekabela Hitoreri Hitoreri Kiva ore Kumi uri 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 Shir daberi Kivod Adonai Alayich vigla Lai 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 La 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 Lecha Dodi La 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 Likrat Kala La 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 Pnei Shabbat Pnei Shabbat Nekabela Boi v'shalom Ateret bala Gam v'simcha U'sola Toch emunei Am segula Boi chala la 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 la, P'nei Shabbat, P'nei Shabbat nikabelah.
We remain standing for the Barhu, the call to prayer, on page 146. It's a call to prayer. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. We continue together in English at the bottom of page 148 as we bless the one who turns day into night and changes the seasons. Together, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. We continue now with the Shema on page 152, and it is my pleasure to invite Addie Crone to the Bima to help lead us in the Shema. Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom alevavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, b'shivtecha, b'beitecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, u'sholchbecha v'kumecha, u'shartam leot al yadecha, V'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha u'chetavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim l'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim leot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. I just want to point out that Addie is nowhere near her bat mitzvah. She's just an excellent Hebrew student. So Yasher Kochech to Addie. And I also want to say that the Ve'ahavta is about passing on the tradition to the next generation. And there is no better example of that than the beautiful prayer that you just chanted with all of us. So thank you, Addie. Thank you so much. We continue now with the Michamocha, a song of freedom, on page 158.
Nora tehilo do se fele, Nora tehilo o se fele. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you? Miriam, Ze'eli, Anuvi Amharu, Ze'eli, Anuvi Amru.
We continue now on page 160 with the Hashkivenu, a prayer for peace.
Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, Lishalom, Lishalom, Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, Lishalom. Mahamidenu, Malkeinu, L'chaim, U'Lishalom, U'Lishalom. Hashkivenu, 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 Adonai, Eloheinu, Lishalom, Ufrosalinu, Sukat Shlomi. Hashkivenu,
Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishanon Ushmu tzidinu U'oheinu L'chayim Ushalom me'ata v'ad olam Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha Aleinu Sukkot shlomecha Hashkivenu
Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom.
We rise now in body or spirit as we continue with the Amidah on page 164. We will sing the opening verses together, Adonai Sevatai Tiftach, and then continue silently with the prayers of our hearts or those on the page to page 180, where we will come back together with the singing of Oseh Shalom, a prayer for peace.
shalom bimromam. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevil. V'himru. Amen. Oh, say shalom bimromam. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'himru. Shalom bimromam. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'himru. Amen.
We continue now on page 109 with the Mishaberach, the prayer for healing. And as we do, we think of all those in our lives who may be in need of healing of body, of mind, or of spirit. And as is our custom at GRS, tonight I will read from the list and then invite you to share any names of those that you may be thinking of by looking around the room and inviting you to share those names when my eyes meet yours. I know there are many of you that are watching tonight on the live stream. I would invite you to say those names that you're thinking of at that time as well. Tonight we are thinking of Yitzchak ben Chaya Devora, friend of Cantor Reuben, Masha bat Yehudit, friend of Cantor Reuben, Baruch ben Gittel, June Robinson, friend of Susan Elkin, Sinna Alderman, friend of the Laced family, Sandy Roberts, Bill Richter, GRS member, Marilyn Shaftel, mother of Michael Shaftel, Eric Gutierrez, Ellen Marks, friend of Sheila and Larry Cantor, Tanine Allison, Colleen Marie Kelly, Alan Elkowitz, friend of Taffy Holiday, and Lisa Sher Demushalom, friend of Sarah Gregoire. I would invite you to say those names of the folks that you're thinking of now. We're holding all of them in our hearts tonight as we sing together the words of the Mishaberach.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikol habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha lahavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. So this morning, as I sat down to complete my sermon about this week's Torah portion, Shalach Lecha, my phone kept chiming over and over and over again. When I finally turned to look at it, my stomach sank. Roe, it said, has been overturned. After 50 years, the Supreme Court has overturned abortion rights. I went to my first political rally in grade school with my dad. There was a march for abortion rights in Washington, D.C., and at the time, my dad was the president of the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights, a nonprofit made up of tens of clergy people, maybe even hundreds, from Catholic nuns to Protestant ministers, who often held meetings in our living room. And even though I knew this group was important as a child, I don't think I understood at the time what it had to do with Judaism. So let's begin with a bit of context. To quote Rabbi Gerson I, my dad, in a sermon given several years ago, Judaism has revered and sanctified human life for nearly 4,000 years. The words l'chaim, to life, are not merely a toast, but a reflection of our most deeply held orienting value. During the time when religious men were marching across the face of the earth in destruction of the family of humanity in the name of Jesus or Allah, Jews were teaching our children that within the heart of every soul is the veritable presence of God, and that every human being on earth is created in God's image. Ours has always been a sensitive regard for the sanctity of human life. And yet we have come to very different conclusions than the so-called pro-life community concerning the question of whether and when a woman may choose to abort an embryo or a fetus. Abortion in our tradition is not seen as the murder or killing of a person. In fact, until the moment of birth and until the very first breath, an embryo or a fetus is seen as part of the mother. It does not achieve the status of a nefesh, a soul, an ensouled being, until it is born, until it breathes, and attains an independent existence. In fact, Jewish law does not consider a fetus to be alive at all. Until 40 days after conception, a fetus is considered to be, and this is taken directly from the Talmud, mere water. And in the Torah, in Exodus chapter 21, verses 22 to 23, there's a story about two men fighting. In the process, they injure a pregnant woman and cause her to miscarry. The Torah then states that if the only harm done is the miscarriage, the man who hurt the woman will have to pay a fine. But if the pregnant woman herself is gravely injured, the penalty will be grave. The penalty will be that which applies to homicides. Why? Because in the eyes of the Torah, the woman is a life, whereas the fetus does not have the status of a person. Jewish law also treats abortion as health care, stating that should a pregnancy threaten the life or health of a woman, abortion is permitted. This definition of health also extends to psychological health in the minds of the rabbis. And so from a Jewish legal perspective, from a halachic perspective, the bottom line is this. Under Jewish law, a fetus is not a person. and thus does not have the same rights as one who is already alive. Therefore, the interests of a pregnant person must always come before that of the fetus. Protecting the life that already exists always takes precedence in our tradition. The broader repercussions of today's decision are particularly distressing for us as Jews, because today's Supreme Court decision privileges one religious viewpoint, conservative Christianity, over all others. It is a precedent-setting violation of the Establishment Clause and the First Amendment. The overturning of Roe versus Wade denies Jews the freedom to follow their own religious principles, treasuring the absolute sanctity of human life, and therefore valuing the life and well-being of a mother over an unborn fetus. It also opens the door to a number of other First Amendment violations: the overturning of a woman's right to contraception, as well as LGBTQ rights, including the right to gay marriage. Perhaps Sheila Katz, the CEO of the National Council of Jewish Women, said it best when she wrote the following: "Abortion bans place greater value on the life of the fetus than on the pregnant person, a violation of both Jewish law and tradition, and of American religious liberty. Now, it seems only certain people are entitled to religious liberty, which renders the entire concept meaningless. Today's decision betrays this most cherished American value, the rights of American Jews and other people of faith who believe in access to abortion, who are the majority of people in this country, have been sacrificed to the overwhelming zeal of one small group that has turned the shield of religious freedom into a sword." And so where do we go from here? As Jews, we're commanded, even in our darkest moments, to resist despair, and in the face of despair, to act. So here's a short list of what we can do. Number 1, give. Support the Abortion Care Network, which will now be more needed than ever before, Planned Parenthood, NARAL, and the National Council of Jewish Women, and other organizations that provide women with life-saving health care, so that women living in states without abortion access will be able to travel to get the health care resources that they need. Abortion will become a state right, and though all of us sitting here tonight are lucky enough to live in a state that ensures that right, half of all American women will not have it. Number 2, vote. Vote for candidates who will protect freedom of religion, freedom from religion, women's rights, and LGBTQ rights. Vote like your life and your friends' lives depend on it, because they do. And 3, fight. Fight to make sure that no one has to have an enforced pregnancy, especially the poor women, many of them women of color, who are the most vulnerable. Protest to ensure that everyone can make their own faith-informed choices about their bodies and their lives. Protest in the streets and fight in the courts to make sure we can all access care that we need and make our own decisions for ourselves and our futures. Canvass and go door to door before elections to explain what is at stake. Jewish rhetoric requires that every Devar Torah, every sermon, end with what is known as a nechemta, a word of comfort. But tonight, on this very dark day in American history, I've been struggling all day to find comfort. And so, a small reminder for me and for all of us. When Roe versus Wade was passed 50 years ago, before I was born, it must have seemed at the time like a miracle. When segregation was outlawed, it had once been declared unthinkable for blacks and whites to use the same bathrooms and attend the same schools. And when women were given the right to vote, it was only because of groups of unrepentant and persistent suffragettes who would accept nothing less. We may not be able to change today's decision right now, but that doesn't mean that our trying and our working for everyone's rights will not someday, somehow, change the course of history. Shabbat Shalom. We begin to conclude our service now with the Aleinu. I want to invite you to rise in body or spirit as we chant the Aleinu, which can be found on page 586 of your Sidurim, of your prayer books. The Aleinu is our prayer which gives voice to our hopes for a world of compassion, a world of freedom, and a world of justice. Page 586. Shabeach laton hakol, latet gdula leotzer breshit, shehu notei shamayim v'yosed haaretz, umoshav yikaro bashamayim mima'ah, ushchinatu zo begavhei meromim, hu Eloheinu einod, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני We continue now with the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598, and as we do, we think of all of those in our lives who we may be missing at this time, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have lost more recently. As is our custom, I will read from the list tonight, and then if there's someone else you are remembering, I'll invite you to say their names as my eyes meet yours. And for those of you who are watching on the live stream, I would invite you to share any names you wish to at that time as well. Tonight we are observing the yahrzeits of Alvin Pergament, father of Taffy Holiday, Kurt Meyer, father of Juan Meyer, and Elizabeth Haar, best friend of Rabbi Joey Hessel. Also, if I've said the name of one of your loved ones and you have memories you would like to share, I would invite you to do so at this time. We're holding them all in our hearts this evening as we say together the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chai echon uv'yom echon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudasha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And may each of us be a comfort to the bereaved as well. And we say together. You may be seated. It is my pleasure to invite Ken Greenberg up for his last announcements of his unexpectedly long tenure as president. Ken, if you will.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi and Cantor, for a lovely service, and Rabbi for your deeply thoughtful words. Thank you, Zach, for accompanying our service. Couple of announcements. This Tuesday at 7:30, right here, we will be having our annual meeting. If you haven't filled out a proxy yet and gotten to us, please get it to us. It's not sunset yet, so I think I can say there are proxies outside if you haven't filled one in and you want to take care of it now. At the meeting, it's very important. One of the most important things is we get to elect my successor. Yay. We also, even more important, are going to be re-electing the rabbi for another term. It's looking good. And we adopt the budget. It'll be both here, and I believe, are we putting it on the internet also, Sandy? So it should be on the internet. Check the bulletin or check the announcements that we're sending out if you can't make it. On July 13th at 7:30, GRS Reads, our book club, will be having a discussion for a remarkable book, Wildland, The Making of America's Fury by Evan Osnos. This is a National Book Award and Pulitzer Prize-winning writer and a Greenwich High graduate. Osnos describes 3 places he has lived in the United States: Greenwich, Clarksburg, West Virginia, and Chicago, Illinois, to illuminate the origins of America's fury. The book is available everywhere, including the Greenwich Library. As this is my last service, or to quote Wendy when she finishes the conclusion of the 4th year of my 2-year term, I do want to say a few words and thank a few people. First of all, I'd like to thank the congregation electing me as president, giving me the honor to serve you. I'm humbled by this, and it has been my privilege to serve. I would like to thank all of the volunteers. I mean, people say, Ken, you've done so much. Without the volunteers, nothing gets done. This is not a one-person organization, not a two-person organization. It is really an organization that runs on the backs of its volunteers. A little bit more of that in a second. I want to thank the board of trustees, all of whom have given up their time and supporting the temple, and my executive committee, including Andrew Lobelson, Ron Zait, Susan Elkin, Rebecca Steinfeld, and Helen Stark, especially Helen, who I'll tell you when the emergency issue comes and Sandy and I are there, Helen's the 3rd person we bring in. She's not here today. I especially want to thank on this Ron Zait, who is taking over and has the good sense before his term to take a vacation. And I want to reiterate the words to thank Sandy. What she said about our working together is 100% true. We famously meshed as far as strengths and weaknesses in getting everything done. Finally, I want to thank the clergy, Cantor Rubin for the last couple of years, and Rabbi Gerson. Again, it has been my privilege to work with you. As a final thought, somebody said to me last week at our service, Ken, isn't it a lot of work? I won't say no, Ann wouldn't let me. But my response and what I would say to people is, yes, it's a lot of work, but it is probably some of the most fulfilling and rewarding work I have ever done. It is something I would do again in a minute. And I guess as a parting thought, many of you here and many people, I'm sure on Zoom, volunteer for this organization or other organizations and understand the fulfillment. If you're not volunteering, either for GRS, hopefully, or if GRS isn't your thing, to find out some other way to give to the community, I strongly recommend that you do so. It will pay you back 100 times for any of the time you put in. Thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom.
I want to thank Ken one more time, but I also want to thank Anne, because I think the spouse of the temple president also does some heavy lifting. Anne has been here every Friday night with Ken. I'm sure she's been in the background on many, many phone conversations. And one more email, honey, one more email. I can only imagine. So thank you, Anne, for allowing Ken to have a very long tenure as our president. Thank you, Ken. We really could not have done it without you. So. We conclude our service now with Kiddush and Motzi, so I want to invite everyone to rise and come forward. And I'm going to have Ken and Ann hold and uncover the challah. The cantor will have the grape juice. And Kara, if you want to come forward as well. And I don't know, Joel and Sherry, if you want to stand up here as well. All right.
Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
melech
haolam,
haolam,
borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'ratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadosh hashabbat l'chaim. Mano Manischewitz.
and a man of Shabbat.
Ken and Ann, if you will, at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, what a beautiful challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.